joining because it really shows our vision of that working together and succeeding together, us coming together of an evening to focus on parents, pupils, and the school pushing towards those exams that start at the beginning of May, or the actual sit down exams that start at the beginning of May. But there are a number of exams that start before that in technology, in art, in those practical subjects. So that gives us around 14 and a half weeks until the first exam. So there's 14 and a half school weeks left until the pupils will go in and sit their first exam, which is always RE. To put that in some sort of context, we've already had 17 and a half weeks since September, and that feels like it's absolutely flown by. School weeks, that is, more if we had in the holidays. So we've already had the year 11s have already had more time this academic year than they've got left. So that puts that 14 and a half week might feel like a long time, but when we look back, it feels like it's completely flown since we were handing out the year 10, end of year 10 mock results at the beginning of the year, at the beginning of year 11. We've seen a massive shift in attitude of year 11s, really, really positive shift in our year 11s as a whole, both individual young people, but as a whole as well. The mock outcomes, so our autumn term one mock outcomes are ahead in all areas, in some places significantly ahead of what our mock outcomes were this time last year. So this current year 11 are projected to perform much better than last year's year 11. So we're really hopeful and feeling really positive about performance. However, we're not there yet. And the real gains with year 11 are made in the next 14 weeks, the next 14 school weeks. The real gains are always made in this time. The pupils that engage, the pupils that work hard, the pupils that do the extra are the ones that go on to succeed in their exams. You're going to get loads of advice tonight. You're going to get loads of tips. You're going to get loads of strategies on a whole host of things, including from Mr. Loon about the Raising Achievement Plan, so the revision sessions that we've got going, the evenings like this evening, activities that are available for the young people to join in with in the coming months. Miss Daniels, Miss Hesse are going to talk to you about English and maths, some of the core revision strategies in English and maths, and including the intervention sessions that are taking place every single day, the extra teaching that is taking place every single day that students need to be engaged with. Ms. Skinner's going to talk about RE, as I said, for compulsory for all our students, and the first sit-down exam each year. Miss Brown's going to talk about science. Science is an area where, as a cohort, students have got to step up. So what we've seen in the mock exams in both at the end of year 10 and in year 11 is that whilst we've seen some improvements, we've not seen the gains from the young people, from the effort that they're putting in that we've seen in some other areas. So in science, the things that Miss Brown is going to talk to you about are going to be really, really important to focus in on to support the young people to move forward. And then Mr. Loon again at the end talking about the advice and guidance for year 11 pupils, then leaning into sixth form and the programs that are taking place for sixth form over the coming months. So Miss Parry might join in at the end just to talk about sixth form and recruitment there. So you're going to get lots of tips, going to get lots of advice this evening. A few key things from me, really. Attendance. You cannot, in year 11, over-egg the importance of attendance. The biggest contributing factor last year to poor performance amongst pupils was attendance. So pupils that attended 90% and above of the time attained in line with national average, made progress in line with national. Those students that attended less than 90% of the time, and then particularly less than 80% of the time, achieved well below their peers nationally. So attendance, it didn't matter what the starting point was, didn't matter what their reading age was, didn't matter whether they came to us with a low Key Stage 2 score or a high Key Stage 2 score when we did our CAT tests when they joined us, or SATs last year. None of that mattered more than attendance. So getting our young people to attend day in and day out for the next 14 and a half weeks is absolutely critical. And it's where the biggest gains will be made. And that's why we will be relentless through Mr. Wilson, Miss Lamb, and the pastoral teams will be relentless in getting young people into school. Homework, massively important, particularly for coursework-based subjects. So I know for certain, if we take PE, for instance, that in PE, the entire coursework-based element of the course is on Google Classroom for pupils to go on and complete. So if young people aren't going on and completing that work, they are disadvantaging themselves when it comes to completing coursework and making the progress that they need to make. I think also really important is the pupils looking out for themselves, being kind to themselves, thinking about their own well-being, thinking about balancing their time, thinking about not just it can't just be revision all weekend, every weekend. That's got to be mixed in with other things. Likewise, leaving it all too late is going to add additional stress and pressure as well. So that's got to be a key focus. And then finally, parents keeping an open line of communication to us, letting us know what's going on, asking us what support is available, and letting us know if students are struggling at all. So those things really, attending school, doing their homework, looking after themselves, and then parents communicating with us to keep us in the loop are massively important. I think I last week I was unable to meet with Year 11 in collective worship in assembly, but the message was going to be really clear. Last week with all other year groups, I met all other year groups, and we had our assembly, and the message was really clear around the theme of the week on the baptism of Christ. And I spoke to all students on what I prepared to speak to Year 11 about, and I'll finish with, before I hand over to Mr. Loon, I'll finish with this evening. We were talking about the baptism of Christ. We were talking about the moment Um, um, we were talking about the moment that John the Baptist was baptizing Jesus, and the angels were looking up at Jesus, and the clouds opened up, the heavens opened, and God looked down, and he said, "This is my beloved Son, of whom I am well proud." And that moment is always a bit of a choking moment when I speak to this cohort, this group of Year 11s, because we are so proud of what they've achieved so far, but we're more proud of what they've still got to give and the potential they've still got to fulfill. And we have moments all the time when we look at lots of different children. I could name pretty much something that each young person in Year 11 has done to make me proud. But collectively, as a year group, what they're doing now is so positive, but we're not there yet. And God was saying that He was proud of Jesus for the actions that He'd taken as a man. He was baptized as a man, not as a child. So he was proud of the actions that Jesus had taken on the lead up to that. We want to be, what I would have said to the Year 11s last week, is we want to be in a position on that day as they're walking into their first exam, and on that day when they're collecting their exams, we want to look back and say we are so proud of the actions that you've taken to get these results. So that was what I would have shared with our young people last week. I just wanted to share that this evening because we are incredibly proud, but there's still lots and lots of work to do. And the theme of this evening is to look at how we can efficiently get the young people working to support you, to support them, to get them working at home, to get the absolute most out of them in order to make results day in August a really positive experience, and for our sixth form recruitment into St Mary's sixth form or the and the Holy Family Catholic Maths sixth form a really positive experience, which I'm looking forward to already. But thank you very much for joining us. Thanks very much to the colleagues here who are giving up their time this evening to speak to you all. I really do appreciate it. And I'll now hand over to Mr. Loon, who will guide us through the rest of the evening. Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. So, yes, is talking about our RAP plan here. Okay, so we are, as Mr. Maddox has identified, about 14 and a half weeks left until the exams start, 15 weeks if you can't start this week. If we take out February half term and we take out 2 weeks for Easter, that leaves us 12 school weeks from now until the start of exams. So the time, as you can see there, the time to act for our students is now. So on Monday, I led an assembly with our young people in Year 11, and I shared with them some revision strategies that I'm going to talk to you about in a minute, but also I shared with them and I gave each student a revision pack. Now, if your child doesn't have a revision pack, don't worry, we have one made up for them in school with their year team. So all they need to do is go to their year team and they'll be able to get it there. From now, we are expecting students in their core subjects to complete 3 sessions of revision per week, and for their optional subjects, 2 sessions per week. Now, each session should last approximately 20 to 40 minutes. Weeknights, 1 to 3 subjects per evening. And I've put a little star there that homeworks, period 6, any Saturday schools or any masterclasses that we do, they will count towards those. And during the holidays, they need to be doing at least 4 to 5 subjects per day. And in bank holidays, again, 4 to 5 subjects per day. And at the weekends, they need to obviously give themselves some time to rest and relax and do other things, but they need to be doing at least 3 to 5 subjects per day. Now, we're in the engage stage of our raising achievement plan. So now many subjects are now coming around to the last parts and sections of the curriculum that they'll be teaching. We have our next set of mock exams, which commence the week of the 3rd of March. We have our maths mock exams that are going to happen straight after half term, and then the main body of the mock exam period will begin the beginning of the 3rd. Next week, your young people and yourselves will have a copy of the mock exam timetable detailing when they will be. We will be starting some bespoke Saturday school sessions where departments will be inviting groups of pupils in to work on key areas. Departments will communicate these directly with our young people as to when they are, what they need to attend. We've already had some running with RE, and I know some of the subjects are planning to run them as well. We have a schedule of revision sessions during exams. Last year, we ran a very successful sessions prior to each exam where the young people would go and work with the department they had the exam on the next day, and they would work in that department focusing on key areas that will come up in the exam, key strategies to help them succeed. We've also got coaching going on with our young people, both through our extended leadership team and through the year team who are coaching pupils and guiding them on what they need to do to prepare for their exams, how they can prepare, and what it is they need for their next steps. And then obviously we'll then lead into April and June, which is our final stage of our Raising Achievement Plan, which is then launching into the start of the exam period. So all subjects will be finishing their curriculum that they've taught. The results and feedback and the question level analysis of the mocks will be shared with pupils and yourselves. Personalised plans for pupils will be created based around their revision. What do they need to do based on those final rounds of mocks to give them the best chance of success in the real thing? And then further Saturday schools and master classes. And then again, any pre-exam sessions and revision sessions. Now, with our young people, I've shared 3 revision strategies that we would like them to prioritise. Now, these revision strategies are based on evidence. They've shown to be successful and improve students' knowledge and then obviously their outcomes. One thing that I've really stressed with our young people that during revision, they can be really good at making themselves look busy by doing things like copying out pages and pages of notes or highlighting to the nth degree, but that doesn't actually do anything for them. What they need to be doing is focusing on the strategies that we have shared with them. So these will be promoted within school, within lessons by their class teachers. This is what we've shared with our young people, and part of their revision pack, they've had paper flashcards to support them with this. The first strategy that I shared with them was concept maps. So really, really good at condensing lots of information into chunks. They're very good and very visual, helps them to explore ideas, make links between topics, and it helps them condense lots and lots of content, particularly their exams in lots of subjects are very, very content heavy. There's lots of information that they need to know. It helps them condense that down and makes it more manageable. By chunking that information, it helps them able better to remember it and then obviously retrieve it in the exam. Now, when they're making their concept map, they start by making a page of notes on a particular topic and use some keywords and some images to help as visual cues and visual triggers. They then fold their notes and make a summary diagram and then keeping the keywords that they've used, but trying to organize the information. That's a really key stage, is trying to organize that information to key areas. It tells them what they do and don't know about certain areas. It allows them to make links between different topics. There's lots of subjects and within subjects, topics that have links to other topics, and particularly those students who are trying to access those higher level marks, they need to be able to explain how certain subjects and topics relate together, how these cross-curricular links or cross-topic links, how they'll need to be able to explain those in their exam. Then they summarize that down into 5 to 6 key words, and then finally summarizing it with some key images that act as mental cues and mental triggers to help them remember all that content and information. And by doing that, they synthesize that information 4 times. That's 4 times they are going over, testing, condensing, refining, and retrieving that information. So it'll improve their retention, it'll improve their knowledge understanding as well. The next step, or next stage and revision strategy that we shared with them was flashcards. So these are really good at training memory to actively recall information. So they will write a prompt or a question on one side and then all the information on the other. And by making the cards and then testing themselves with the cards, they are again developing that metacognition of strategy of knowing what they do and don't know. And it helps them develop their confidence with topics. And rather than being tied to a really thick revision guide, they've got an easy two-hand portable revision pack. And again, we've given them some flashcards to get started. They are easily purchased from shops like Home and Bargain for relatively cheaply, but we can also support in school by providing them extra flashcards and paper and card to make them. Now, when they're using their flashcards, the strategy that I'm sharing with the students is 3 piles. These 3 piles, they start with all their flashcards in the everyday pile. They're then trying to move to the every other day pile. Every time they get a question right, a flashcard right, they move it up. Every time they get it wrong, they move it down. And the idea is to try and move all flashcards from the everyday pile to the once a week pile. And by doing that, again, they're testing, they're retrieving, they're going back over the information. And if they're able to move all their flashcards to the once a week pile, then they've really confirmed and strengthened that knowledge in their minds. And the final strategy we've shared is practicing past papers and exam style questions. Now, when I talk to our young people in their assembly, I said, before they start doing this, they need to make sure that they fill the gaps in their knowledge by using these other strategies that I've shared with them to help them. Now, practicing past papers, as well as obviously as a testing tool to show what they do and don't know, it's really, really useful tool to help them learn the structure, the language, the rubric of exams. Exams are written in a very formulaic way. Examiners use certain key command words, and they're expecting a response to a certain level based on that command word. And if our young people get really familiar with that, that allows them to eke out those extra marks that could be the difference between their grade 4, their grade 5 and above. Now, what I've said with them is when they're doing the past paper, they need to stick to the exam length. That's twofold. One, they get used to writing under that time conditions. They get used to working under that time pressure. Then they need to mark their answers. Now, lots of departments are making videos or making model mark schemes where they walk through how to answer the questions, because lots of mark schemes aren't written for pupils, they're written for examiners. So they will work with our staff to help them interpret and understand how they apply that mark scheme. And then once they've done that paper once, do it again. What have they learned from that first attempt that they can then repeat and do again? Now, I know the staff who are going to talk in a moment will talk about where you can access potentially exam papers. There's lots of online resources, but also within school, teachers, departments, we will support with providing exam papers for pupils to practice. Now I'm going to hand over to Miss Daniels, who's head of maths, and talk about maths tonight.
Thank you very much, Sir. So to start off with, I will just give you a little bit of a recap of what the actual exam looks like. So for maths, there are 3 papers, all equally weighted. They're all about an hour, or they are an hour and a half long. And the paper 2 and paper 3 need a scientific calculator that we can provide for all students in the exam. The first paper is going to be on the 15th of May, and then the second 2 papers following on in early June. As we start science, we work on a 2-tier operation. So our first tier is our higher tier, which goes from grades 9 to 3, and the foundation tier, which goes from grade 5 to 1. We've already started conversations with students about what tiers they will be sitting in the summer exam. Those tiers are still something we are discussing. However, we need to be starting to look at solidifying those tiers to make sure our students are the best prepared as possible. If there is still students that we are looking at which tier they would be looking for to sit in summer, we would be focusing around the grade 4, grade 5 questions to make sure they are capable of accessing both of those papers well. In the last week, all of our students received their question level analysis again from their November mock examination. These are 3 sheets of paper that have all 90 questions that the students sat back in November. They are colour-coded to help of ease for revision. So what I would say is that the green sections might, as Sir said before, might need to dip into these now and again to keep them fresh in memory. However, the main focus of revision should be around the amber and the red areas. Amber areas are where students have picked up half marks. So they're topics that students might have been able to do a little bit of, but need a bit further work to ensure that they can pick up full marks. Red areas are where students have picked up less than full marks, therefore are key areas that students need to go and recap. This gives all of our students a personalised revision list as we move forward into the last 14 weeks before their examination. Before half term, when students have had an opportunity to close these gaps with their QLAs, we'll be putting copies again of the mock exam papers back on Google Classroom so students can try those questions again to ensure that they've improved in those areas. On top of the students' work with this QLA, our staff and us as leaders are using this to guide the students' journey as they go to their examination. So we've already looked at curriculum changes based on the feedback we have received from the November mock, and we'll continue to do this as we get the results from the February mock. On top of this as well, Mr. Luna and Mr. Maddox both spoke about the amount of intervention we are currently doing with our students. Those question level analyses feed in as a key vital part of our interventions, which means students are looking at those areas not only in lessons, not only at home using their question level analysis, but also in their intervention sessions, which I'll go on to a little bit further later on to talk about what intervention sessions are on offer for our students. Mr. Luna also spoke about homework or past papers. In maths, we provide our students every 2 weeks with a new past paper. The first week of having a past paper, the students should be attempting as many questions as they can on that paper. This allows them to have key exam practice to ensure that they understand and pick up as many marks as possible in all of these examination papers. In the second week, the video for these exams will be put on Google Classroom. As Mr. Loon said, it's vital that we're going through these papers thereafter after attempting them. We can't assume we've got them right, and it's really, really important to go back to those questions that we didn't understand or we left gaps in to make sure we can now answer those questions. It is also possible for obviously the students to bring these papers to their lessons or to their interventions to have further conversations with their members of staff to help and support them in areas that they still might be struggling with after watching the video. There are other areas as well to help and support our students as we move forward towards the examinations. Back in June in year 10, just before they did their mocks at the end of the year, all students were provided with 2 revision books from maths. The first one was a knowledge organiser. It was either a green or a brown book that had pages of full vital facts that the students need to learn for their examinations. And the second, the revision book, gave the students a chance to practice this information to see whether they remembered and could apply it to questions. The second excellent piece of equipment for revision is called On Maths that we use. This is a second way that students can practice past papers. It's an online system that marks the students' papers as they go through. It gives the students guidance on approximately what grade boundaries they could be aiming at to ensure they know what type of marks they need to be successful at certain grades. As with what I said with the past papers that we are providing with students, there is a YouTube video to follow alongside that if students do not understand either the question or what has gone wrong if they didn't get full marks, that they could be supporting their learning with that. Miss Loon also mentioned flashcards and students making flashcards. There's an excellent website called Quizlet that work in collaboration with Corbett Maths that provide pre-made flashcards to support students in memorising those key facts that allow them to apply their learning to questions. As well as the Inspire time, so form time interventions, and the after school sessions we are currently offering for our students in maths. We will also be putting on a February half-term session to help and prepare our students for the mock exam, and then Easter and May holiday sessions to prepare them for the GCSEs. As we get closer to the exam, we will also be providing a number of Saturday sessions that students can come and work with their maths teachers to help and provide that last little push on and support to get them to the best possible grades in summer. And if any student doesn't know when these sessions are, if they just go and ask their maths teacher will be able to share this. As Mr. Maddox says, the key to success this year is us working together. Therefore, anything that we can do on top of what I've already mentioned to help and support you, to support your children, please get in touch with us and we can continue to provide as much support to get them the best possible grade in the summer examinations. I will now pass you over to Miss Hesse to talk to you about the English GCSE.
Thank you so much, Miss Daniels, and thank you to the parents who've joined us this evening. Your engagement with these online sessions are crucial, absolutely crucial for your children and for us, and it does mean a lot to us that you've taken the time to come and join us this evening, so welcome. So my name is Mrs. Hesse, and I'm Head of English. I'm just going to walk you through what the examinations look like for your children. So in English, we have, they'll get two qualifications, a qualification in English language that has two components. So component one, language, is with 40% of the qualification. Component two, language, is with 60% of the total qualification. Timings for those: component one, 1 hour and 45 minutes. Component two is a little longer with 2 hours. English literature is the second qualification in English, and that is component one, which is a 2-hour exam, and component two, which is 60% of the qualification, 2 hours and 30 minutes. So those exams, the first exam will be the literature exam, component one, and that takes place on the 13th of May. A week later, component two, literature, is on the 20th of May. And moving on to language, which is the last papers that they'll do for English, there'll be component one, language, which will be the 23rd of May, and component two, language, which will be the 6th of June. Oh, it looks like some of my slides are missing from there. Okay, not to worry. Mr. Loon will add those slides. I'll just talk you through the course. Oh, actually, do you know what might be better? If Miss Skinner goes next, and I'll just add those slides to the slideshow.
Thanks, Ms. Hesse. Yes, so just while Ms. Hesse sorts out that slight technical difficulty, I'm just going to talk you through in terms of the support and the provision that we are doing from the Religious Education Department. I just want to reiterate everything that Ms. Daniels has said. A lot of the support, you'll see themes coming through from what Mr. Maddox said right at the start of this evening to what Mr. Loon said and what myself and my other colleagues are going to say in terms of the level of support our staff are going to do. So I just want to talk really briefly just a bit about the structure of the course, then I'll talk about the exams, and then I'll discuss what we've done since the mocks and what's in place, and most importantly, how you as parents and carers can support your young people during this really kind of challenging time, but also quite an exciting time because it's the next step in their journey to where they're going to progress in life. So from an RE perspective, you know, our pupils are given the opportunity to explore religious and moral and ethical issues, and in terms of the exam content, it focuses very much on describe skills, evaluation skills, students having the ability to see viewpoints from different arguments and also being able to source that alongside that. So I'm just going to talk now on the next slide very much about the exam board. So our exam board is an exam board called Educas. As mentioned at the start, the RE GCSE is compulsory subject, and we focus on the Catholic content, but also we are required to study a world religion. Students will sit 3 exam papers, which will focus on both Catholic beliefs, Jewish beliefs, and moral and ethical issues alongside that. There's a wealth of resources found on the Educast site, which I'll allude to later on. So let me just delve into what the 3 papers look like, and then I'm just going to go on to sort of the practical support that we've put in place already and how you can best support your young person in these coming weeks. So there are 3 exam papers. The first 2 exam papers are an hour and a half long. As Mr. Maddox has said at the start of this evening, RE is usually one of the first exam papers. So we want our young people to go in on that first paper and come out feeling really confident, because that will boost them not just for their next RE exams, but also for all their other subjects. So the first 2 papers are an hour and a half, and you can see there, I'm not going to read through each slide, but you can see what the content is in relation to those. The final paper, which is the Jewish paper, that's a shorter paper. It's an hour long, and it looks at Jewish beliefs and practices. The first 2 papers sit before the May half term, and then the Jewish paper sits after the May half term. So that's quite useful in terms of students prioritising their revision schedule in terms of what topics they will focus on. So I'm now just going to go on to the next slide, just talk a little bit about the types of questions so that you're just more aware of what they look like. I'm sure from Parents' Evening, you've got that awareness already, but just to kind of revisit this, and that will interlink in terms of how you can continue to support your young person at home. There's 4 different types of questions on the RE papers. The first 2, the A style is just a key concept. So there are 5 units of work across the GCSE RE, and there are 8 keywords linked with each unit. So ultimately, we're saying to our young people during their RE lessons, they can rote learn those words. On a weekly basis, they should be revisiting those keywords and learning them. The B style question focuses on a describe question. So it will just ask the young person to describe Catholic beliefs about abortion, or describe Catholic beliefs about life after death. And the young person is just asked there to talk about what the Catholic Church teaches about that particular belief, but linking in evidence to support that. So, for example, a quote from the Bible to back that up. On to the final 2 types of questions on the next slide. You've got a C question, which focuses on asking the students to explain something. Okay, and again, just some tips there in relation to what they need to do in terms of their structure, about 3 paragraphs, linking in a source of authority, and talking about how that belief impacts a Catholic. And then the final question, which I will say here this evening, and I say to our young people all the time, is the most important question, because this type of question carries 50% of the whole GCSE. So across the 3 exam papers, they have 8 D questions, which seems very little, but they are the longer and more extended style of writing. These carry for 50% of the GCSE. So if our young people can score quite highly on these questions, it puts them in a really good position in relation to those other questions. And these questions are statement questions, where it will say something such as, there's no such thing as life after death. And then the young person has to argue it from 2 different viewpoints, what they consider about that, linking in evidence, but critically analysing it. This is where I feel as parents, you can really support your young person with this, because it's about having those conversations at home where you're challenging their opinion or their belief about something. And it doesn't even need to have to be a religious belief. It could be, for example, something's on the news and you think, okay, should mobile phones be banned in school? And you ask your child what they think, and then you challenge them and you say, well, that's not a strong enough argument. Why? And then you give an argument back. So even just by having those conversations within the home, when you're having dinner together, that will really help develop your young person's ability to justify an opinion, which ultimately sits well on those D questions. So just moving on finally to the last couple of slides from RE. I'm just going to talk a little bit about the mocks and what the mocks has given us, and then the support that we've got in place. So at the end of year 10, students completed mock exams there. And then the same at the start of year 11 in November, we've had our next set of mocks, which has identified a number of misconceptions with individual students. So their class teacher has met with them and they've talked through their mock paper and they've identified their areas for development individually. There's another set of mocks coming up in March where our students will sit all 3 RE papers. So they'll sit the Jewish paper alongside that. There were some key sort of areas for the young people to kind of focus on that came out of those, particularly Jewish beliefs. And as I've already alluded to, that real big focus on the D-style questions as a skill focus. One big misconception, but I'm going to say that actually came out across a number of areas, is this phrase Christian traditions. So again, as parents, just reiterating to your young child that Christian traditions means different Christian views. So Catholics think this, Church of England thinks that. Okay. And again, class teachers are working on that misconception within their lessons. So just moving on to the next slide. This is the support that we've currently put in place and we will continue to put into place for our young people. So earlier on the year, they've received revision guides. They've also received a week-by-week revision schedule that tells the young person what they need to focus on, which interlinks with the revision booklet that they've got, and there's tasks within inside the booklet to help with each week focus. Alongside that, each week, there's some key concepts for them to focus on, and that schedule takes them right up from September, right up to the first day of their first exam and to the end of their last exam. Okay, so that's maybe a question you could ask your child this evening. Where's your RE revision timetable? Okay, see if they've got it. If not, it's on their Google Classroom, or their class teacher can provide them with another one. They've also received resources from Educast in terms of key concepts. And revision PowerPoints have gone on to Google Classroom alongside that. They'll receive further resources in February and also just in March. We stagger it a little bit in relation to gradually kind of feeding them so they don't feel overwhelmed alongside that. Okay, students have revision checklists, and prior to the exams, they'll get last minute cue cards that we've generated to support alongside that. Obviously, as Mr. Loon's already said this evening, we've got the period 6 interventions that are taking place, which happen on a Thursday for RE, and we've already started some RE masterclasses, which the next one is this Saturday at 10 o'clock for students to come in and have a real sort of focus, particularly on those D-style questions. That's what those masterclass sessions will focus on. And then finally from me, just the next slide, just to focus on some further support. If you go onto the Educast exam website as parents, there's a whole wealth of resources there, practice questions, etc. All of that information we put on the students' Google Classroom as well. But I suppose one particular thing I just kind of want to end with that's really useful is these YouTube videos from RE Beck. They are 5-minute revision videos that cover all of the exam content. They're really good. And at the end of the revision video, it gives some past paper questions for the students to complete and a list of keywords so they can test, can they link the key concepts to what they've learned alongside that. As you can see there on the screen, just reiterating our Thursday night revision sessions. There will be other weekend sessions along with the masterclass. And just like previous years, before each exam, we will do online sessions the evening before the exam as our last minute focus. And then just finally to me, before I hand back over to Miss Hesse, on the last slide, we just want to reiterate the fact that, you know, if you've got any concerns or you've got any questions, please contact any member of the RE team or your child's RE teacher, because ultimately we want to work together so that your child achieves their full potential. We thank you for attending tonight, and I'm just going to pass back over to Miss Hesse. Thank you.
Right, apologies, those are things at the same time. So, hi, my name's Mrs. Brown, and I'm going to speak to you about the science interventions and also the work that we've been doing with students over the course of their 2 sets of mock exams. So, just to begin with then, in terms of background for yourselves, the exam board that we sit at St Mary's is the AQA exam board. But you yourselves will know that there is differences in what our students study at St Mary's. So there is the option that students can study for combined science, in which they receive 2 GCSEs, or that they can study for triple or separate science, in which they receive 3 GCSEs. So a typical exam paper that a student receives when they sit either a mock exam or they sit their formal exams in the summer looks like this, with the information given to them as to whether or not the paper that they sit is biology, chemistry or physics, combined or triple, and whether or not it is a foundation or a higher tier paper. Now, our students sit a combination of 6 papers, and that is no different for students who sit a combined science qualification or for students who sit a separate science qualification. The only difference that exists between the papers is that the combined science papers are made up of 70 marks per exam paper and are 1 hour 15 in length, and our separate science papers are 1 hour 45 in length and consist of 100 marks. So of those papers, the content is very much the same for both combined science and for separate science, with the only difference being that for some parts of the course, the separate science has additional information in it. So, for example, within the biology course, when students have studied this year about the nervous system and endocrine system, our separate science students then cover additional information such as the structure of the eye and the structure of the brain, which is not covered by our combined science students. The structure of the exam papers themselves is the same regardless of the qualification that our students study, with approximately 40% of the overall marks being for the knowledge and understanding. 15% of the marks of the paper are made up of the required practical questions, and those are going to be the 2 areas that I'm going to focus on this evening, because this is where students are able to gain the majority of the marks across the papers, and where it is that students are able to pick up more marks than what they're currently picking up, and helping them to really rapidly boost their grades from where they currently are. So our papers, as I've just said to you, are made up of 2 biology, 2 chemistry and 2 physics papers, with the exam dates for you shown on the screen now. So all of the paper 1s for biology, for chemistry and for physics sit before the May half-term break. The biology paper is on the 13th of May, the chemistry paper on the 19th of May, and the physics paper on the 22nd of May. We then have the half-term break at the end of that week, and when students come back after the half-term break, they sit all of the paper 2 papers. So for biology, that is on the 9th of June. For chemistry, it is on the 13th of June, and for physics, it is on the 16th of June. So it's quite nice in terms of the structure of the papers that there is that half-term break between them. The way in which we structure it at St Mary's is that the paper 1 are the papers that we teach and focus on in year 10. So this is all of the content that students have already completed and finished, and what made up their November mock examination. So this is content that students have been revising since the beginning of this year in the lead up to those November mock exams. The paper 2 content is the content that we focus and we teach in year 11. So this will make up our mock examinations that begin on the 3rd of May. So on the 3rd of May, the papers that students will be sitting and they are aware of that they are sitting is the paper 2 content. And the paper 2 content is the content that we have been teaching the students over the course of this year. So no content that we've taught them in year 10 will be covered on these mock exam papers. Now, I said to you that the 2 biggest areas that students are going to be able to more rapidly pick up marks are by focusing on the required practicals and focusing on the knowledge and understanding. So as part of the course, there are 21 required practicals that students experience as part of the combined science course. Now, within our curriculum, there is many more opportunities for practical experiments for them to be able to develop their learning and understanding. But these are the 21 practicals that are set out by the exam board that students need to know because of the fact that they can feature in the examinations. For the separate science students, it isn't 21 required practicals, it's 28, which is broken down into 10 biology, 8 chemistry and 10 physics practicals. The practicals that will be focused on in paper 2 are the ones that are shown in the red box on the right hand side. So there are, for the combined science biology, just 2 required practicals that they focus on that you can see in these ticks over here. So that would be reaction times and field investigations. However, for the separate science students, there are 5 required practicals that they are expected to know about. In chemistry, there are 4 required practicals that will feature on the paper 2 papers, which include rates of reaction, chromatography, water purification. There is also then additional practicals that are involved in the separate science students, and the same repeats again for physics, with force and extension, acceleration, waves and radiation and absorption on the combined science papers, and those same practicals but with the addition of thermal insulation and light for the separate science students. Now, this has been a big focus for us over the course of this year, to work on students picking up more marks in required practicals. This is something that is identified nationally, that is a weakness of students nationally when they sit exam papers, and it is a focus that, as part of the local authority team, that a lot of science departments across the whole local authority have been looking at developing over the course of this year. The tact and the method in which we have gone about doing this at St Mary's is to also build into our curriculum time a drop-down day. And you will know from letters that went home before Christmas that we had a drop-down day that we did post mock exams for paper 1. That was really, really well fed back by students about how much they felt that they gained from the day and how much they felt that they had a much more thorough understanding of the required practicals from having done that day with us. What we are doing this time round is that we are putting that practical drop-down day into place next week to focus on the paper 2 practicals. Now, this will then come before they sit their mock exams. So for the alpha side of year 11, that is going to be on Monday the 27th of January. And for the beta side of year 11, that is going to be on Tuesday the 28th of January. The way in which we've designed this is that students then have a carousel of practical activities that they work on with each of the members of the department, where they work through the practicals and the methods. Students are broken up into groups between 8 and 12 students as well. So it really allows a much more bespoke and smaller cohort for students to be able to work with the staff in the department. The key focus has been on students knowing the variables that are involved in each of the experiments, but also having a thorough understanding of the methods that are involved, because a lot of the exam questions that then come that involve the required practicals are students being able to write their own methods if given some small information about the practical. So this has been something that we've been working on. We have then produced booklets for the students to be able to take away with them, for them to be able to learn the practical activities. And this is something that we have also been focusing on outside of the drop-down days, but also as part of the curriculum. The second element that I discussed with you is to do with the knowledge and understanding. So 40% of the exam papers that students sit are called knowledge and understanding questions. This is just key information, factual information, definitions, identifying, for example, parts of an atom on a diagram or organs of the body. So this is really for students the very, very easy marks that they can pick up. But at the same time, this is also the very, very easy revision that the students can be doing. This is, as Mr. Loon said before, the information that can be going onto mind maps for the students to focus on the knowledge and understanding, or can be going on flashcards for the students. Alongside developing those skills as part of their revision, you're also aware that we also buy into a package that's called TASMI. Now, you receive a weekly email from TASMI as being registered with the school and having your school email address registered with us. So you will receive a weekly email from TASMI that gives you an update about your child's progress and gives you a copy of the tree that you can see in the diagram. So this tree here is one of our year 11 students' trees, and this is for his biology course. Each branch of the tree is a different part of the specification, and each leaf on the tree is a different part of like an element of, say, for example, a lesson or a key piece of information that they need to know about. So you receive a copy of this tree each week that shows you what your child's strengths are, but also shows you what their areas of development are. So if a leaf that is on the tree is a large leaf, that means that your child has experienced that question more frequently. A small leaf would mean that they may have only come across the question once at the moment. The greener the leaf is, the stronger your child is in that topic. So a dark green leaf would tell you that every single time your child has come across that question, they have gotten that question correct. So that means then that that is a part of the course that they are confident on and that they have a good understanding of. Red leaves or orange leaves are areas that they need to be able to work on. So I've dropped into here an example then for this student of an area of the course where they then have gotten that question wrong. So you can see, for an example, that it is set up as an online revision tool, that it is all multiple choice questions. They repeat, it has AI technology built into it. So therefore, if they get these types of questions wrong, they get support with it, or they get asked the topics more frequently. What you can then see there, if you onto, so for example, the red leaf that I've picked out there shows that it's part of the course that we've done in biology on the control of blood glucose, that they've attempted that question 3 times but have got the question wrong twice. Shows them what they have selected as the answer, and then it shows them what the actual correct answer is. It also then gives us the information in terms of when they last experienced that question. So it means that on a classroom teacher level, we can then look as a whole class cohort in terms of what topics students are struggling with, and we can then tailor the revision both within our classroom and also within our intervention sessions to be able to focus on those areas of the specification. However, if you are also then looking into this tree as well as part of your weekly email, then these can then be the topics that you can then pick out when you're working on flashcards with your child at home, that you can then pick flashcards out on those topics that you know that they are doing weaker on, so that you yourselves as well can also help to target the intervention and know how it is that the students are doing. Right, I think now we should be able to hand back over to Mrs. Hesse.
Okay, thank you so much for your patience with our technical difficulties there. So if you could just move on to the next slide, please, Mr. Loon. Okay, the literature examinations come first, so I think we'll talk a little bit about that in a second. But before we start with those literature texts that your children have been studying over a two-year course, I'd like to kind of, before we start with those, talk about what we're doing in class to get your children ready for these exams. As Mr. Maddox said at the start of the presentation, this is a crucial time for our students. And in English, our main focus really is ensuring that students feel confident and ready walking into their mock exams and their summer exams. We want them to walk in and know exactly what they need to do and how to do it. In order for this to happen, we've put together a range of resources, interventions and teaching strategies to make sure that kids do feel ready and confident. So in class, Year 11 students for language have been using step-by-step booklets. These are, in effect, past papers, but they're broken down in bite-sized chunks. So students answer a question and can have immediate feedback. Essentially, what students are doing in English is creating their own revision booklets with real marking from their teachers and real feedback. And it's just a great way for students to remember the course that they've studied and the detail and the depth in which they've studied it. It also gives them a sense of achievement. This is something you've done before. This is a question that you've answered successfully before. These are the skills that you have. They've worked really well. Alongside that, in the class, we've been using pupil progress spreadsheets. Generally, they would be what just teachers use. After we've marked a set of mock exams, we would put those in a spreadsheet. We would see what the grade equated to, and we would share the grade with students. And of course, in class, we would go through that mock exam, but often students are fatigued after a mock. Going back over it can often be quite laborious for them, and sometimes it can be demoralizing in that if they didn't get what they wanted to get, all they're really interested in is that end result, that grade, that number. So what I've done is I've put these pupil progress slides together, and as we're working through booklets with students, their grade goes live into that working document. Students see straight away where they are, and they know when it gets to the end, after they've answered those questions, all of those individual marks equate to a grade. It has sparked such ambition in our students that it's just been a pleasure to see. They want to do well. They want to see that number moving, and they do see it in real time. One of our massive college initiatives at the moment is live marking, and students in year 11 classes have really embraced this, using it as a way to move students along quickly and in a timely fashion rather than when the lesson's over with. So that's really benefited our students. And again, they get to take those booklets home with them and see what they did and how they did. Another thing that I'd like to talk to you about is another way that we're going to be preparing students is before each mock examination, your children will be invited to attend a mock examination, a walk and talking mock, whereby we'll walk them through exactly what needs to happen. And I suppose the argument might be, well, they would know what happens after all their lessons, the booklets, the progress spreadsheets, but it's just another way of boosting confidence in our students. So when they walk into that examination hall, they feel like they know exactly what they're doing and what they need to do, and in order to be successful. Because again, with our students, we want to bolster confidence. If they feel confident, they'll be successful. So these are the texts that your children have studied over the 2-year period. They've studied A Christmas Carol by Charles Dickens, Macbeth by William Shakespeare, An Inspector Calls by J.B. Priestley, and 18 poems from the Educast Exam Board Poetry Anthology. I've put links there to some guides. The guides are priced at around £5 each. Not essential, because we actually have study guides for all students for each of those texts, as well as the booklets that they work in class. But if you are looking for some extra help in helping your child revise, they are really good, and these are certified from the exam board that we use. Next slide, please. Okay, alongside good quality teaching and challenging lessons, we also offer revision sessions after school and during school holidays. Our revision sessions take place. Our period 6 session is every Wednesday after school. And at the moment, those are centred on language skills. In particular, at the moment, it's narrative writing skills. And that's just because their next round of mocks will be language mocks. Again, making sure that students know exactly what they need to do and they're well prepared. So alongside these revision sessions, we also provide online materials using Google Classroom. There are past papers on there. There are exam walkthroughs to go with those past papers. And again, they've been certified by Educast. Every single student in year 11 has a pack containing all of the work they've completed over their 2-year course. They use it every day. Every time they come into English, they're given their pack. They've got ownership of that. It has their highlighters in and whatever they need to be successful for that lesson and for their mock exams and summer exams. We also use past papers as a way of teaching in lessons, as well as giving them to students to look at online. When students complete past papers online, they will always be marked by their teachers. Next slide, please. One of the things that we've done is provided students with the revision guide that you can see on screen now. This is for component 1 and 2 language. I think supporting your child with their English exams, encourage them to use the study guide. It's got lots and lots of helpful tips for them to use alongside what they're doing in school and homework. Remind them to attend all intervention sessions in college. We understand as their teachers just how, what a pressure cooker it is for them at the moment. We all understand that, and we do our very, very best to support them in college with that. But intervention sessions, they're a great way of kind of mixing with other students that they wouldn't normally, sharing ideas, sharing information in a more laid back environment, and they're proven to work. So yeah, if you could remind them to do that and kind of encourage them with that. And support them with time given for revision tasks and homework at home. I know quite often at home we've all got busy lifestyles, and busy homes. So supporting your children with a space and a place to revise and do their homework is absolutely crucial. Right, okay, so that was my last slide. Again, if there are any, we know that you've had lots and lots of information here, and we appreciate that it is a lot to take in. But if there's anything else that you'd like to discuss with me, please get in touch with me at school, and I'll do my very best to get back to you as soon as I can. Right, enjoy the rest of your evening. Thank you so much for listening.
Thank you for Miss Hesse, and thank you for everyone's patience with our issues there. I'm just going to round up the evening by just directing to some support beyond school. Now, obviously, we all support our young people in school with their pastoral team, and as Miss Hesse said, every member of staff will work to support our young people through this period. But this period will be tough on them at times. They will feel the enormous pressure of coursework deadlines, of the looming exams. And when we talked to them on Monday, we said this is normal. We said everybody in this building who is a teacher or is a member of staff in this school, and as all of you as parents have been, we've all been in this position ourselves. We know what works, we know what doesn't. We know how to prioritize things. We know how to work through this period successfully. But if any of our young people are struggling, like I said, we will support in school, but I just direct you to those resources that are on the slide there that they can access outside of school. The head of year, Miss Boyson, will also be sharing some path to performance strategies over the coming months, which will focus on things like sleep, nutrition, focus, reduction of screen time, things like that. All those things that, alongside doing all this work to work on the areas that all the staff have talked about tonight, that they are physically and mentally preparing themselves well for this upcoming period, that they are getting the right amount of sleep, that they are getting the right amount of nutrition, so they're not coming to school tired, hungry. They are able to focus and to perform to their absolute best. And I'll echo Miss Hesse's point there, that if there's anything that you need from us as a staff, please do get in contact with us, and we'll do our best to support both yourselves and our young people. And again, thank you for attending this evening.
Thanks, Mr. Liu. Just to finish, thank you very much for everyone who attended tonight. Again, this will be on video on our website and through social media. A reminder that our post-16 website is available through the St Mary's website. The application deadline has passed now, but it's still open for any late applications. If you would like us to give you any specific advice above and beyond what you've already had and what the pupils have already had, then please let us know. All students have this year an individual meeting with the independent advice and guidance people from Connections, and the website's open for late applications. Again, thanks very much for joining us tonight. Any questions, please let us know on email or give us a ring. Have a good evening, everyone.